Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the greatest proof of love isn't in the man who stays, it's in the one who disappears. Because when he vanishes, it's not always rejection, it's revelation. It reveals his fee, his unreadiness, his inability to rise to the level your love demands. And in that moment, you are faced with the most powerful truth of all. His absence isn't a loss, it's a mirror showing you just how extraordinary you really are. Love can often be the most confusing teacher in our lives. We dream of it, crave it, and sometimes when we think we've found it, the person in front of us suddenly pulls away. And in that moment, we tell ourselves a story if he disappeared. Maybe it's because he didn't care. Maybe it's because we weren't enough. Maybe it's because he never really loved us. But what if the truth is more complicated? What if disappearing in its strangest, most paradoxical way is sometimes the very thing a man does when he actually does love you? Because love doesn't always show up in the way we expect it to. When someone vanishes from your world, your first instinct is to fill in the blanks. The silence screams louder than any words could. You replay conversations in your head. You analyze every detail of your last interaction. You torture yourself with questions about whether you said too much or not enough. And beneath it all lies that aching wound. How could someone who claimed to feel so deeply suddenly leave you standing alone? But sometimes it isn't rejection, it's fear. Because for some men, the depth of their own feelings terrifies them. Loving you isn't the problem, it's the weight of what that love demands. The responsibility, the vulnerability, the surrender. It can feel like too much, too soon. A man who truly feels something profound for you may find himself confronted with parts of himself he isn't ready to face. Maybe his past hasn't healed yet. Maybe his vision of the future isn't aligned with what he knows you deserve. Maybe he sees in you a level of depth that requires him to rise higher than he has ever been willing to rise. And instead of stepping into that challenge, he retreats. Not because you weren't worth it, but because he wasn't ready for the mirror your love held up to him. Sometimes disappearing isn't about you at all. It's about him not being ready to meet the man he would have to become to stand next to you. Think of it this way. If you offer someone unconditional kindness, unwavering support, and a level of intimacy that exposes the very core of who they are, they don't just get to enjoy you, they are called to grow because of you. And growth is uncomfortable. Growth requires honesty, vulnerability, and accountability. And while many men crave the thrill of love, not all are ready for the transformation that real love demands, so they vanish. They tell themselves it's easier to run than to confront. Easier to disappear than to be seen, easier to withdraw than to risk failing in front of you. When that happens, you're left with the haunting paradox. The very reason he's gone is the same reason you thought he would stay, because he did feel something real. If he didn't, he could casually hang around, give you breadcrumbs of affection, keep you in his orbit without much thought. But when someone senses they could actually fall, truly fall, they know there's no middle ground. It's either all in or all out. And if they're not ready for all in, they run to the safest option they know: silence, distance, disappearance. This doesn't mean you should chase after him. It doesn't mean you should wait with open arms, hoping one day he'll come back having conquered his demons. The truth is, someone disappearing is not your test. It's theirs. Your strength is not measured by how much pain you can tolerate or how long you can hold on to a ghost. Your strength is in recognizing that his disappearance is not a statement of your inadequacy, but a confession of his. It is his admission, without words, that he was confronted with something bigger than his own readiness. But here's where the deeper lesson lies. You cannot spend your life trying to be the person who convinces someone else that love is safe. You cannot prove through your loyalty or your patience that you are worthy of being chosen. You already are. His vanishing act doesn't change that. If anything, it highlights it. Because when someone can't handle the fullness of your presence, it means you were too real, too authentic, too powerful a force for them to stand half prepared. And that is not your burden to carry. It is theirs. Sometimes the greatest act of love someone can show you is leaving when they know they cannot meet you where you are. They may not frame it that way. It may not feel noble when you're sitting in the silence of their absence. But the truth is, if he stayed without the capacity to give you what you deserve, he would wound you far worse over time. He would drag you through cycles of inconsistency, half commitments, and empty promises. His disappearance spares you the prolonged agony of investing in a man who hasn't yet invested in himself. When a man disappears, it forces you to confront your own strength. It invites you to anchor yourself not in his presence, but in your worth. Because you are not defined by who chooses to stay or who runs away. You are defined by the standards you hold even when someone fails to meet them. That silence, as painful as it is, becomes the very space where you rediscover your own power. It's in that void that you remember you never needed someone else to complete you. You needed them only to complement the life you already own. And so, while it may break your heart in the moment, understand that his disappearance is not the end of your story. It's a clearing of the path. It's a reminder that you deserve a man who doesn't run when he feels, who doesn't hide when he's vulnerable, who doesn't retreat when the stakes are real. You deserve someone who sees the same truth he saw, but instead of escaping, he leans in. Instead of fearing the growth, he embraces it. Instead of disappearing, he fights to stay. But until that person arrives, do not waste your life trying to decode the silence of someone who left. If he truly loved you and disappeared, then it means he saw something extraordinary in you and couldn't rise to meet it. That isn't your loss. That is the story of someone who glimpsed greatness and wasn't ready to step into it. Your only task is to keep walking, keep shining, and keep standing tall enough that the right man, the one who's ready to stay, has the chance to find you. If he truly loved you and disappeared, then it means he saw something extraordinary in you and couldn't rise to meet it. That isn't your loss. That is the story of someone who glimpsed greatness and wasn't ready to step into it. Your only task is to keep walking, keep shining, and keep standing tall enough that the right man, the one who's ready to stay, has the chance to find you. Because here's the truth that's difficult to swallow. People don't leave when it's easy to love you. They leave when it's hard to love themselves in your presence. Your light will always expose whether someone has done their own inner work. Your love will always test the limits of their capacity to be vulnerable, consistent, and true. And sometimes that test is one they fail, not because you made it impossible, but because they were unwilling to pass through the discomfort of growth. You must stop confusing their failure as a reflection of your value. Their disappearance is not evidence that you are too much. It's evidence that they were unwilling to become enough. What happens next is the most critical part. Too many people allow someone's absence to shrink them, to make them question their worth, to dull their shine. But the moment you start lowering your standard because someone wasn't able to meet it, you rob yourself of the very thing that sets you apart. You cannot build a life where your value is contingent on someone else's readiness. Instead, you must live in such a way that your worth is unshakable, regardless of who walks away. Sometimes disappearing is not cowardice, but a form of honesty. Some men know deep inside that they would only end up hurting you more if they stayed. They know their inability to commit, their lack of clarity. Their emotional immaturity would slowly erode what you deserve. And while it might feel like abandonment to you, for them it is a way of saying, I can't give you what you are worthy of, and I won't chain you to my insufficiency. That is not weakness, it is clarity. But whether it is courage or fear that drives their silence, the result for you is the same. You must stand unbroken. It's tempting to imagine that if you had done something differently, been more patient, less demanding, more accommodating, things would have turned out better. But that is an illusion, because if love requires you to become less than you are, it is not love at all. It's compromise at the expense of your soul. The very fact that he disappeared after seeing who you truly are is proof that you showed up authentically. And authenticity, though it may cost you some people, will always attract the ones who are meant to stay. What you must realize is that love is not proven by someone's ability to stand in the sunshine of your easy days. It is proven in their willingness to hold your hand through the storms. A man who disappears when love becomes heavy never intended to carry the weight of something real. And that's okay. Because the weight of real love is not for everyone, but it is for you. Which means you cannot waste your strength trying to hand that weight to someone too fragile to bear it. When he disappears, he thinks he has left you powerless. But in truth, he has gifted you a profound opportunity. He has given you the chance to learn what it means to stand alone and still thrive. He has given you the gift of clarity, showing you without a shadow of a doubt that he was not the one who could walk beside you in the way you deserve. And he has given you freedom, freedom from false promises, freedom from delayed growth, freedom from the illusion that he was enough. There's a deep strength in accepting this kind of ending without bitterness, Because bitterness keeps you tethered to the ghost of someone who has already walked away. But acceptance sets you free. Acceptance allows you to look at his disappearance not as an insult to your worth, but as confirmation of your power. It says, I was strong enough to be myself, and he was too weak to remain. That is not my defeat, it is my victory. Think about the kind of life you want to build. Do you really want to share it with someone who trembles at the very sight of love? Do you want to tie your future to a man who retreats when he feels vulnerable? Or do you want someone who chooses to stay even when staying is hard? A man who disappears when he feels something real has already shown you he cannot be trusted with the intimacy you offer. Why then would you ever want him to return unless he has completely rebuilt himself into a man of courage? But here's the paradox. The only way he will ever have the chance to rebuild is if you refuse to hold space for him in your heart. By moving forward, by refusing to shrink, by refusing to wait, you give him the very distance he needs to confront himself. And whether he grows or not, you win. Because your life is not placed on pause for the sake of his awakening. You keep moving, you keep shining, and you let your radiance draw in a love that is ready. And when that love arrives, it won't disappear. It won't retreat at the first sign of fear. It won't vanish into silence when the feelings become overwhelming. It will lean in, it will rise to meet you, it will stay. And in that moment, you'll understand why the other one had to go. Because if he hadn't disappeared, you would never have had the space to receive the man who was truly built to love you. You see, disappearing is not always the opposite of love. Sometimes it is the most twisted evidence of it. But love without courage, love without readiness, love without responsibility is a shadow of the real thing. It flickers, but it cannot sustain you. And you deserve more than flickers. You deserve a fire that does not burn out when the night grows cold. His vanishing taught you that. His silence taught you that. His absence taught you that. So the next time someone disappears after showing you their heart, don't see it as a rejection, see it as direction. Life is steering you away from someone who couldn't hold what you bring. Life is protecting you from years of wasted time. Life is clearing your path for someone who not only sees your worth, but has the strength to meet it. That isn't something to grieve forever, that's something to honor. And as you honor it, you rise. You rise with higher standards, you rise with deeper clarity. You rise with unshakable self-worth. You rise because you refuse to believe that someone's exit defines your value. You rise because you know that love is not measured by who stays when it's easy, but by who stays when it's hard. And if someone disappears when it gets hard, they were never the one meant to walk the journey with you anyway. The love you deserve will not disappear. It will not run from the weight of its own depth. It will not tremble at the thought of forever. It will not retreat into silence when it feels vulnerable. The love you deserve will rise. It will endure. It will remain. And until it comes, you must continue to live in such a way that your worth does not bend for the ones who vanish. Because if he truly loved you and disappeared, that was his story. Your story is still being written, and it is far greater than what he was ready to handle. Your story is still being written, and it is far greater than what he was ready to handle. And this is the truth that few people are willing to accept. Someone leaving you is not the end of your worth. It's the unveiling of theirs. When a man disappears, he reveals more about his limits than about your value. He shows you what he cannot hold, what he is unwilling to fight for, what he is too afraid to confront within himself. And once you understand that, you stop taking his absence as an insult and start seeing it as information. His silence is data. His exit is clarity. His lack of presence is a message written in bold letters saying, I cannot walk the road you are walking. And instead of resenting him for it, you let that clarity free you. There is a strange kind of beauty in the way people leave. It hurts, yes, but it also makes space. Every departure creates room for arrival. Every closed door creates the possibility of a new one opening. Every goodbye is also a clearing for a better hello. And when you stop seeing his disappearance as a wound and start seeing it as a release, you begin to understand that you are not empty. You are available. Available for the kind of love that doesn't hide, doesn't retreat, doesn't abandon when things get real. Many people confuse love with presence, but presence without courage is just convenience. It's easy to be present when love is light and fun and doesn't challenge the soul. But true love requires presence in the moments of fear, doubt, insecurity, and imperfection. And that's where so many men fail. They feel the intensity of something real, and their instinct tells them to protect themselves, to flee, to disappear. But what they fail to realize is that disappearing does not protect them, it condemns them. It condemns them to a cycle of running, to a pattern of leaving whenever love gets deep. And until they confront that, until they face the storm instead of running from it, they will never experience the very thing they desire most. And you, standing on the other side of their absence, must remember this: you are not broken because someone left. You are awakened. You have been given a front row seat to the truth of what real love requires. You have seen firsthand that the ability to feel deeply is not enough. It must be matched with the ability to stay deeply. And that lesson, as painful as it is, will guide you for the rest of your life, because you will no longer mistake intensity for permanence, passion for commitment, or attraction for courage. You now know the difference. The greatest danger when someone disappears is not their absence, but the story you tell yourself about it. If you tell yourself the story that you are unworthy, you will carry that belief into every future connection. If you tell yourself the story that you should have done more, you will exhaust yourself in future relationships trying to overcompensate. If you tell yourself the story that love always ends in loss, you will build walls so high that no one will be able to reach you. But if you tell yourself the truth that his disappearance was about him, not you, you will step into your future without fear. You will trust again, not because you are naive, but because you know the wrong man leaving makes space for the right man to arrive. It's also important to see that when someone disappears, they leave behind a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. That space will not stay empty forever. Life will fill it, love will fill it, new experiences will fill it. The question is, will you allow it to be filled with bitterness, or will you allow it to be filled with growth? That choice is yours. And if you choose growth, you will emerge from this not weaker, but stronger, not smaller, but bigger, not broken, but expanded. Sometimes love's greatest act is in its absence, because absence forces you to love yourself more fiercely. Absence forces you to see that your life is not contingent on one person's decision to stay. Absence teaches you resilience in a way that presence never could. And as much as you may want him back in those quiet moments of longing, what you really need is not his return, but your rise. You need to rise into the version of yourself that sees clearly, that chooses wisely, that understands love is not proven by how hard you hold on, but by how gracefully you let go when someone walks away. And here's another truth. If he truly loved you and disappeared, he will feel the weight of that decision long after you've healed. Because real love does not leave without leaving scars. He may convince himself in the moment that he is protecting you, protecting himself, or simply avoiding pain, but eventually he will realize what he walked away from. He will feel the emptiness of knowing he abandoned something real. But by the time he realizes it, you will have moved forward. You will no longer be waiting. You will have stepped into the kind of life where love does not disappear but expands. And that is when the power shifts. The man who disappears teaches you to never again accept half measures. He teaches you to never again settle for words without action. He teaches you to never again confuse someone's feelings with someone's readiness. Because feelings without readiness are like seeds thrown on barren soil. They cannot grow. And you deserve love that grows. You deserve love that roots itself deeply, that weathers storms, that stands tall. His disappearance, painful as it was, is the very thing that awakens you to demand more. Think of every strong person you admire. They didn't become strong because life handed them comfort. They became strong because life handed them loss, rejection, and abandonment, and they chose to rise instead of collapse. That is what you are doing now. Every day you choose not to be defined by his absence is another day you write your story with courage. Every time you refuse to chase after him, you reclaim your dignity. Every time you stand in your worth despite your longing, you expand into the person you were always meant to be. One day, someone will come into your life who doesn't disappear when things get real. And when they do, you will look back at this season not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Gratitude that the wrong man left so that the right man could stay. Gratitude that you learned the lessons of absence so you could fully embrace the gift of presence. Gratitude that you discovered your own strength before you shared your life with someone else's. Because when that man arrives, you won't need him to prove your worth. You will already know it. You won't need him to complete you. You will already be whole. You won't need him to stay in order to feel enough. You will already be enough with or without him. That is the paradox of someone disappearing when they love you. It feels like abandonment, but it is also liberation. It feels like loss, but it is also preparation. It feels like the end, but it is actually the beginning. Because the truth is, love that runs away was never love that could last. And lasting love is what you are made for. And so you keep walking, you keep shining, you keep standing tall. Not because he left, but because you know you were never meant to be diminished by his absence. You were meant to rise through it, to learn from it, to grow because of it. And in that growth, you will discover the kind of love that doesn't disappear, doesn't retreat, doesn't fear the depth of your soul. The kind of love that stays not because it is easy, but because it is true. The kind of love that stays not because it is easy, but because it is true. And true love is not found in the shallow waters where people only dip their toes. It's discovered in the depths where courage is required to swim. Anyone can admire you from the shore. Anyone can claim to feel something for you when the sun is out and the waters are calm. But only someone with true depth will dive in when the tides are strong, when the waters are uncertain, when being with you requires more than attraction, it requires commitment. His disappearance revealed that he was never ready to swim in those depths. And that realization frees you because you are not here to spend your life on the surface. You are here to go deep. When someone vanishes, they take with them all of the illusions you may have been holding onto, and that can feel cruel at first. It feels like a theft, as if they've stolen the picture of a future you had painted in your mind. But what they've really done is remove the illusion before it wasted more of your time. Because time is the most precious thing you have. Love is not measured in how much you give away, but in how wisely you give it. And if someone doesn't have the capacity to match your love with presence, you are better off learning that sooner than later. His absence gave you back your time, even if it hurt to see it that way. And though the silence of his disappearance may echo loudly in your mind, you must learn to reframe it. Silence is not emptiness, it is space. It is space for your healing, space for your growth, space for your clarity. Too often we rush to fill silence with noise, to fill the gap with anyone or anything that distracts us from the ache. But when you sit with that silence, when you allow yourself to feel it without running, you begin to discover yourself on a deeper level. You realize that your own company is not a punishment, but a sanctuary. You realize that you are not lonely, you are becoming whole. A man who disappears when he loves you is unconsciously teaching you about alignment. He may have the feelings, but he doesn't have the readiness. He may have the desire, but he doesn't have the courage. He may have the affection, but he doesn't have the consistency. And without alignment, love cannot flourish. Alignment means his feelings, his actions, and his intentions all point in the same direction. And if they don't, then what you would have built with him would have collapsed anyway. His exit spared you from investing in a structure that had cracks in its foundation. This is why you cannot measure your worth by who stays. Some people stay out of convenience, not love. Others disappear because they actually do feel love but can't handle its weight. Neither of those situations defines you. What defines you is the standard you set for what you accept. If you decide that disappearing is not enough, that silence is not love, that running is not devotion, then you raise the bar for what you allow into your life. And raising the bar ensures that only someone truly capable will be able to step in. There is also a deep dignity in not chasing after someone who disappears, because when you chase, you tell yourself that their absence holds more power than your presence. You put them in the position of deciding your worth. But when you stand still, when you refuse to shrink, you reclaim your power. You show yourself that you are the prize, not the pursuer of ghosts. And in that act of strength, you begin to see yourself in a new light. You are not defined by who walks away. You are defined by how you carry yourself when they do. You must also understand that love is a mirror. The way someone shows up for you reflects where they are in their journey, not where you are in yours. If someone disappears, it is a reflection of their fear, their unreadiness, their inability to handle intimacy, not a reflection of your capacity to inspire it. Love reveals people. It reveals their courage, their wounds, their ability to step into something bigger than themselves. And when someone vanishes, it is because the reflection was too much for them to face. That has nothing to do with whether you are lovable. It has everything to do with whether they are ready, and readiness is everything. Because love is not just a feeling, it is a choice. It is the choice to stay when leaving would be easier. It is the choice to show up when silence would feel safer. It is the choice to lean in when fear tells you to run. And a man who disappears has chosen the easier path. But that choice is about him, not about you. You cannot make someone choose courage. You cannot force someone into readiness. All you can do is honor the truth of their choice and then honor the truth of your own worth by moving forward. It's also important to recognize that disappearing is its own kind of closure. We often wait for words, for explanations, for clarity that never comes. But silence is a statement. Disappearance is an answer. It may not be the answer you wanted, but it is the answer you needed. Because closure is not something someone else gives you. It is something you create when you decide to stop asking questions about someone who has already left. You give yourself closure when you say, I accept that he could not give me what I deserve, and I refuse to let his silence speak louder than my self-respect. Over time, you will see that his leaving was not the end of your story, but the beginning of a better one. The love that truly belongs to you will not vanish into thin air. It will not crumble under pressure. It will not retreat into silence when things get difficult. The love that belongs to you will stay. It will show up. It will endure, and you will recognize it not just by how it makes you feel, but by how it remains. Until then, your job is to continue building the kind of life that does not depend on someone else's presence. Build the life that excites you, that fulfills you, that expands you. Because when you live in alignment with yourself, when you radiate joy and confidence and authenticity, you naturally attract the kind of person who is ready to match that energy. And the man who left will no longer haunt you. He will simply be a chapter in your story, a chapter that taught you resilience, clarity, and strength. There is no greater power than standing tall after someone has walked away, because it shows you that your foundation was never built on them, it was built on you. And when you know that, you become unstoppable. You are no longer afraid of people leaving because you know you can survive it. You are no longer afraid of love failing because you know it only brings you closer to the love that will endure. You are no longer afraid of silence because you know you can fill it with your own voice, your own vision, your own dreams. So if someone disappears after claiming to love you, let them go. Let their absence teach you, shape you, refine you, and then let it propel you forward into a life where love doesn't vanish but thrives. A life where you are not waiting on someone's courage, but walking in your own. A life where you don't settle for love that retreats, but embrace love that remains. And as you keep walking this path, you'll come to see that his disappearance was not a loss. It was a turning point. The moment you stopped measuring your worth by who stayed and started measuring it by how powerfully you rose when someone left.